All right. Okay, we're here. So hey, so welcome to another Men's Breakthrough Hangout. I'm Martin Lopez. I'm one of the hosts, and I have a guest every week. Every other week, I'm bringing on Dr. Frueh, and I'll tell you a little bit about Dr. Frueh. He and I, on alternate weeks, we have a conversation where he's diving into the stuff that I am working on for my own personal growth, building my business, building my just myself as a man, as a human. And so I'm thinking that maybe we'll have some of those conversations, and we'll have some of these conversations live for you. Not yet, but that's in the future. But last time we got together, last time he and I got together, we talked about this thing, which we were talking about. Let me see the one we spoke about, because we actually spoke about this one, which was the 10 mistaken commandments, and we dived deep into that. And if you have not seen that video, please go back in YouTube and watch that video. It was 2 weeks ago. Awesome content. But really, the bottom line of why we do Men's Breakthrough Hangout is because we want to challenge the conventional notions of masculinity, of being a man, and encourage men into personal growth and self-improvement. And the world that we live in right now, there's not a whole lot of agreement for being a tough man, being a powerful man. There's a lot of stuff that goes on about material possessions and a version of toughness that's not tough. It's more like dominance. Like, men are trying to dominate women. I saw some of these podcasts, and hey, to each his own. I just think a lot of them are showing a lack of respect for not only women, but themselves as well. And they're giving I think, a false version of how people really want to be taken care of. There a lot of pointing fingers and showing how like not to do it. Like, you shouldn't do it this way. A lot of what I call judging, blaming, and complaining. So judging how people are doing stuff, blaming them for doing it the wrong way, and then kind of complaining back and forth. And that seems to be kind of like what's been happening in our society. So with all that being said, Dr. Frueh and I want to actually give a different approach, where our approach is more from the idea of contribution, the more from the idea of really for giving back and healing and helping men and women just live more powerful lives, and more lives that are really more in line with who they want to be. So let's bring Dr. Frueh in. Where are you there, buddy? How are you, Dr. Frueh?
Hi, I'm just, I'm wonderful. I had just a sweet conversation with my partner and my wife last night before I went to bed. I went to bed at 8:30, and she said, "You're going to bed at 8:30." I said, "Yeah, I want to be well rested. I'm with Martine tomorrow, and I got some other stuff going on as well." And she said, "Well, I like what you and Martine are doing. It's very real." And she's like the truth teller in the world for me.
Yeah.
She's the reality principle. She also gets the veto on my projects. She has the veto. She's a wonderful partner. And what happens is that I came into the relationship with a lot of idealizations and a lot of expansionary ideas. And I tried to remake her in my own mind. I don't know if she even saw it, but I tried to remake her into the woman I thought she should be. And then I've spent a bunch of years letting go of that and discovering the woman who she is, what you were just talking about. So there's respect at a deep level. You can't make somebody else who you want to. I can't make Martine who I think he ought to be. Martine can't make me who he thinks I ought to be. But what he can do is discover who I am, and I can discover who he is. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah. I
And
love
so,
that. I love that. Yeah. And I think about my divorce, and I think about my relationship, and I think about it often, and I wonder, like, what skills I would have needed in order to have navigated that relationship further,
yes,
beyond my complaints about what she did, what I didn't like, what I did that she didn't like, all the different things. Like, how do we navigate beyond that? Because at the
yes,
time that we
yes,
were still living together, right?
yeah,
I was still committed to making that work out. And then after we split up, I still had I still had a commitment to working it out, even though I split up, and then I went and got a girlfriend, and I was madly in love with my girlfriend. At the same time, I was still going through a divorce, and I was like, man, until that's over, I'm still married. Until it's over, it's not over, And at the time it ended, it was like, wow, okay, I guess it's over. And but what skills? How many men are out there that wish they had the skills but don't have the skills, don't have the understanding of how to see somebody brand new, how to create, and how to show the respect that you show for your wife?
I think you find that you're asking that. We'll go into the alternatives, but I think what you'll find is you're asking that question. That pop psychology has been very helpful, sitcoms and all that, and helpful books, but it's also been detrimental because there's a stall factor. I was just writing the other day and about a person saying, well, I want to know how you feel about that. And what I was writing was, insight isn't all that helpful. That was the title of the little piece I was writing. And so I want to know how you feel about it. The partner says this is how they feel, and they start to get into a competition. And so we use the skill set, and Martine and I will do this down the road. We use the skill set of active listening. And it's nothing brand new to you, but the form of it, the structure of it is extraordinarily powerful for you in getting into this conversation. Because instead of saying, I want to hear how you feel about that, I say, this is how I think. This is what I feel. I don't want you to talk to me that way. That's all I say. I don't say, I know your father wounded you. I know you really mean well. I don't give a bunch of other, lemon meringue all over the thing. I just say, you may not talk. And my wife will do that with me. She'll say, no, you can't. I disagree. No, you can't talk to me that way. And so then we've learned to trust. Following that comes trust. And as we start to trust each other at a deeper level, the piece I'm writing about that is completion, the need for completion. And completion, we'll get back to this. I'm not preempting it, but the need for completion is what that was when you said, I fell in love with her in the first place. What that connection was. There's a cosmic connection. It's a romantic connection. It's a biological, physiological connection. There's a huge promise in that initial connection. And how does that show up over the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years? If you're Martine,
I
you
love
got
that.
30, 40, 60.
There is a promise, isn't there?
Yeah,
there is a promise. There's a, we look at it, and that same promise exists in so many other areas. Like I want to go and be an attorney, or I want to be a doctor. And at the beginning, we have that thought of the promise that's going to give me, and it just exists in so many other areas. Our ability to manage that promise over time is really the skill that is that I don't know that we have so much in society anymore.
Yeah, it's a big in every area you can mention, like you are. I studied for the ministry 8 years, and I had dreams and fantasies about what it would be like to serve a parish. I had dreams and fantasies of what it would be like to be in seminary with a bunch of like-minded men, with all men in those days. I had dreams of that. Guess what? None of those dreams came true. They were not my dream. My dream was my dream. And so how I wanted to serve was my dream. And I had to compare that to myself and my beliefs and values and whatever else, my why. But projecting it onto the church or seminary or somebody else, they were going to meet my dreams? No, they didn't. And they're not going to. And same thing is true with the young idealistic attorney, or the young idealistic politician, or the young idealistic college professor who finds himself at endless meetings and is so discouraged. I've coached a couple of those. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to separate what is yours from what is the rest of the world's. That's what Martine is talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And you always make what I'm talking about sound so much better.
That's good. That's how we work.
That's how we work. So last week we were talking about the 10 what do we call that? Not the 10 alternate commandments, but we called it the
10 commandments.
The 10 commandments of high performing males.
Yeah.
And
they were
They're basically the mistaken commandments. And
Yes.
these are the alternative commandments. So let's kind of jump in on the first one, which is vulnerability is a gift, an art, and a door into who you are. I like that. I
Now,
like
I think that we can go pretty quick on this one for your
yeah.
listeners. Just think about if you know a 3, 4, 5, 6 year old boy, and think of yourself as 3, 4, 5, or 6 year. Oh, your heart is wide open. You got a 360-degree approach to the world. You're not afraid of anything really except loud noises and sudden falls. That's what that's the research. Every baby is afraid of only two things: loud noises and sudden loss of support. Well, you're not afraid of much, but your heart is wide open, and you want to show your dad your finger painting, or you want to show your teacher this or that, or you want to say this to your uncle in the living room. And during those years, you get shamed, you get shut down, you get ignored, you get betrayed, you get all kinds of things. So you learn, if you're listening, you learn to not be vulnerable. On top of that, I think you can disagree, and please do, and message Martine, he'll message me. You not only that, but the culture teaches males that vulnerability is dangerous, and that denying vulnerability, being a hero, playing on the sports field when you're hurt, sitting in a classroom with little girls, and they can sit longer than boys because of their pelvic structure. A little girl can sit longer comfortably than a little boy, but you're shamed for wiggling around and being restless. There's a lot of, you can think of it, we could go on for hours, but there's a lot of ways which you are shamed or put down or suppressed or whatever for your vulnerability. Now,
and that chips away, and that in those moments of shame, chip away. And the way I look at it, it's just, it's ever so slight. It's you don't even notice the amount of chipping away or what's missing.
You don't.
But all of a sudden, you find yourself less than what you remembered. Like that's what it was for me when I went through my life, and I went through my marriage, and at the end, and I came out, and when I was by myself, and I had a moment of silence and a moment for myself, and I noticed that I had allowed myself to be chipped away, or I had chipped away. I don't blame Yvette that she did something to me. It was that I had some kind of agreement with myself that I would allow myself to be less today than yesterday. And it was weird. It was a weird commitment. And I didn't have it. And I didn't have the concept of vulnerability. I didn't have that concept, or as a gift, as an art, as a door. I didn't have that. It was something that I didn't know how to distinguish.
Yes, because that's the other half of this conversation, that if men have been shamed or suppressed or whatever other words I used, then you want to say, what is this thing about being vulnerable? Well, it's a gift. It's a pathway to my heart. Remember in a previous podcast, we talked about the three brains: the head brain, the heart brain, the gut brain. Well, the heart brain has the least language. The head brain has the most language. So the old biblical thing is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The heart creates and contains tremendous wisdom and self-revelation. But if you've been taught to be afraid of it, you self-suppress. You've gone from being suppressed to being self-suppressed. You self-shame. You've gone from being shamed to shaming yourself. All you have to do is look at how men handle their adult sexuality. That's a big conversation, I know.
Ooh, that's something new. That's a bigger one.
Yes, it's huge.
We got a lot to talk about. Yeah.
But if you got into that conversation right now, and a man was talking, he's 40, 50, 60 years old, and I say to him, how do you and your lover talk about your sexuality? He says, oh, well, we're very open. No, I said, I didn't ask you that because I don't know if I trust that. How do you and she talk about your sexuality? How do you actually talk about your physiology, your biochemistry, your emotionality, your dreams, your hopes, your wounds, your past mistakes? How do you talk about that? Do you talk about that? So once you open the door of vulnerability, you open the depth. Now, if you want a long-term relationship, that's what you're after. You're
I
after
can, yeah,
increasing
I could,
depth.
yeah, I couldn't give you an answer of how I talk about it. But I certainly could give you an answer of how I feel because I don't talk about it.
Yes, that's right. That's good. That's a good
Yeah,
observation.
yeah. Let's go. Number two. Let's go. Boom. Let's get this
Okay,
back.
let's.
So it's okay. Number two, the 10 alternative commandments. Number two is it's okay to own, not okay to worship what's owned or to use it as a badge of self-worth. Whoa, that's big time. That's going to shake up YouTube and all those people that want to show off their cars and everything.
Yeah, I had a client last year who made tons of money, several $100 million, and he
Mhm.
had three collector Ferraris. I think they were somewhere between 300,000 and 500,000, something like that. I don't know. I don't
Mm.
study that stuff. He had a Rolls Royce and he had a Bentley. And he came in one day in a session and he's smiling and had this big kind of cat grin on his face. And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, "I got rid of all my collector cars." I said, "What?" "Yeah, I got rid of them." He said, "I don't drive them. They cause me a lot of anxiety. With our work," he said, I've started to do a lot of soul searching. And you know what I had those cars for? I had those cars so other men would think I'm terrific." And he said, "Once I saw that, I said, they got to go. It's a badge I don't need. If I
Oh,
do
what is
need that," yeah, he said, "if I do need that badge, there's a whole lot of work in front of us."
Yeah,
And
and
I
well, there's the opposite part of that too. And I'll tell you, it's this thing that I do because I do the opposite. I drive around a CRV and I kind of make it a point about that. So in a way, I'm doing the opposite version. I didn't realize that till this moment that I'm actually acting like I'm some kind of humble human being, and I'm
Yeah,
saying,
that's
you know
your
what I mean?
badge. Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
"Hi, I'm
look at
Martine.
me,
I'm
I'm
humble."
humble. I don't know if you're humble when you try to make it a point that you're humble, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a nice point. But the culture
Yeah.
reinforces you are what you. There was a bumper sticker 20 years ago. "He who dies with the most toys wins."
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, and it was true of a lot of men. You get big organizations, you got everybody showing off. And if you get a guy like me coming to speak to them, then I bring that up, and that's not a very popular subject because it makes them all afraid. So
they don't
that's
they
why
don't
that's
like
why it's in
that.
there.
That's
No,
right.
no.
Awesome. I love it. So number three is women volunteer to partner with you. Trust that, welcome that, embrace that. Yeah, that's cool. So women volunteer to partner with you. Trust
Yes.
that, welcome that, embrace that. Let's jump on that one.
Take it off the woman. If you and I and who's ever listening, if we go to the bar tonight and we sit at the bar and have a drink, and the men start talking about women, pretty much they're talking about what's wrong with women, what's missing with women, what the problem is with women. If you can take that off the woman and say to yourself, "I don't really observe for what's wrong with my wife, what's her problem is, or what her own psychological therapy work is. I look at me and what I bring to the relationship, and my job is to love with respect. My job is to bring my true neediness, not my little boy neediness, my true neediness. My job is to communicate with sobriety. My job is to be mindful of what she needs and be as responsive to that as I can be." It's not about criticism. We're going to talk about that too, but it's not about criticism of her or where her deficits are. All of that leads to dysfunction of relationship. And besides that, she can't do anything with that. So that
No.
we call that the criticism of the woman, we call that your mother problem. And you get out of your mother problem and respect and accept the woman that volunteers. If you're fortunate enough to have a woman who volunteers to partner with you, bow down to that, say thank you, God, and say thank you to her, and then get to work on yourself. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
I love it. I love it. As my take on that is honor the privilege it is to have somebody care for you.
Yes.
Like it's not like it's not a there's no entitlement. We are not entitled to somebody
Right.
loving us. It's always a gift, that someone cares about you or someone's willing to spend, part of their spirit, part of all that in your direction.
That's a beautiful thing. Yes.
And then I'm switching. And then, like the way I look at it is and then notice what goes on with you about it. Like
Yes.
notice what goes on with you about it. How
Yes.
you invalidate it, how you invalidate yourself, how you do all those beautiful ways that we are as human beings, right? It's just like amazing, beautiful ways that we are as human beings, which, they frankly don't really work that good because they're not very positive. And
Right.
at the same time, they're beautiful things. It's work for us to do for our spirit, work for us to do for our soul. And if you're willing to do the work, like on number one, right? If you're willing to be vulnerable and do the work, then you're the one that's going to win. You're the one that's going to come out on top.
I'll give you a really, really quick example. I'm walking in the kitchen. This is a couple years ago. My wife has this habit of leaving cupboard doors open, not putting the tops back on vitamin bottles and stuff like that. I don't know where she got it. That's what she does. So I'm walking in the kitchen and cupboard doors open, and I'm thinking, why can't she get this? What's the matter with her? I mean,
Why don't you
what's
put the toilet
going on?
seat down?
I'm gonna bump my head on the cupboard door. And then it occurred to me, that who she is, she may change that sometime. I don't know. But who she is she goes in the cupboard for something and walks away. Now, that's not my problem. That's not my thing. My thing is to say, hey, that cupboard is located in a way that I can bump my head. So I'd like maybe make sure that cupboard door is closed. But basically, that went back to my Swiss upbringing. My Swiss upbringing is there's a fastidious focus on neatness and order. And I can be the biggest pain in the ass to live with because I'm focused on that. If I could get a hold of that, then I could start to laugh and I could start to do my own work.
I love it. I love it. And it's, I look at it that same kind of thing that you're talking about. Like I'll give you my version on it. So I live by myself. My kids come and stay with me every once in a while, and they pretty much live with their mother, and they're bigger kids, like 21 and 24. But they love to get away when I'm not here, when I'm up at Ingrid's house, my girlfriend's house, and they come over. Hey, Dad, can I stay over at your place? But sometimes I'm here and they just come over. And but the point is that Diego, my son, this is what I drink. I have two of these. I have two bottles, and they're pink bottles, and I drink. That's why I drink my water. I drink all my juice through that, all. And so I don't use glasses. Now I have glasses in the kitchen, right? And when I get home from the end of the weekend, all the glasses have been used, right? They've all been used, and they're just sitting around. Yeah. Now, the old version of me was to get on the phone and make him wrong, to yell at him, like as though yelling at somebody, creating a loud voice at somebody, and to display my anger or my displease is going to make a difference for somebody. And it's just like all it does is I found out like all it does is hurt him.
Yes, it just hurts him.
Right. That's all I'm doing is hurting him. And it's like I'm not interested in that. I'm just not interested in hurting my son. So same thing happened. I got home this week, and I just sent him a text and said, hey, there's glasses. Would you please wash the glasses before you leave my house? And he says, yeah. That's done. Right. Do I expect I'm going to go away this weekend? It's Christmas week, and I'll be gone. I'll get back on Monday or Tuesday, right? I don't expect the glasses to be clean. I expect the glasses to be used.
But you could, because you can have that conversation.
I don't have a expectation, but I don't have a not expectation. I let it go.
In the marriage conversation, we distinguish between your inner work, your close friendship, like with your sons, or with a relationship, the connection to be intimate with each other. Yeah. But in the third domain is roommates. That's a roommate issue. So they look, we're roommates. That's all we are. There's no father. There's no son here. Mm-hmm. If I invited my friend Stephen up to live with us, and you invited your friend Bob up to live with us, and all 5 or 6 or 7 of us live together, we have roommate issues. Who does the dishes when? Who pays for the electricity? We have roommate issues. So this is all this is, guys. I don't want to emotionalize them. I just want to make it simple.
Yeah, I certainly can add more to it than it needs to be. That's easy. I'm good. Right. I'm good with that. I'm good at adding. Always good at adding more to it. So okay. So this is perfect because number 4 is you and your children made a deal at birth. Honor it. Be their father, as the old book says. Your days shall be long upon the earth.
And that's one you should just address because you're into that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at this. Let's take the story I just said. I look at how I operate, like how I show up as an example. Like I look at that. Like that's like I wish I had this thing that I wrote up this week, but in one of my meditations, I believe it was Sunday morning. I meditated. No, it was last Friday. I was meditating, and I wrote, "What's the most important thing to me?" And I wrote a few different things. And the number one thing I wrote, the most important thing to me was to be a father. There's nothing more important to me on this planet than to be a father. And that when I looked at that, it gave me a different perspective, a deeper cut at who I am for my children, or who I could be. Not necessarily who I am for them, but who I could be and who I'd like to be. An example. It was an example, a provider, a place where they can come and they could be safe. They could speak their mind, and there was a list of all these things. And when I got done with that list, I was like, wow, I will be a husband one day. I think it will be with Ingrid. So that was the second I wrote. The second thing is a husband. And I wrote, and I looked at all those different things I wrote, and I said, yeah, all that for that, a provider, an example, and what that gave me is it gave me back my responsibility for that, the deal that I made, not the deal that my children made.
Yeah.
My children didn't make a deal with me. I made a deal. I requested. I was the one that requested. Yeah. So I honor that. I honor that I requested. And just like love, if they choose to give, I'm happy. I'm honored to receive.
Now, number 5 goes right with what you just said, because one of the functions of the father is to say, son, you don't have to impress me. You do impress me. There's a big
I don't
thing
get that though.
That you have to get it. That's the only person that has to get it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with you, and I live there. But I'm saying that kids don't get that. Kids don't get that.
You don't know that. No, that's your assumption. You don't know.
Okay,
that.
You're right.
So they will hear what they can hear, like all of us. Yeah. I have an 18-year-old guy now I'm coaching. He's wonderful. He's bright. He's smart. And he's 18. I have to remember before each session, I have 85 years going around the track of life. I have 85 years of lifting hay bales, having relationships broken, having lots of things. He's 18. He's got his own history, but boy, do I have to remember to stop and to look and to listen to what he's bringing into my office, because he's 18. He's not 85.
Yes.
And if I can do that, I can be a service to him, which is very much what I want to be. If I can't do that, I'm making all kinds of assumptions, and I'm lecturing him, or I'm explaining too much, or whatever. I'm just blabbing on. He's a gentle and smart young man, so he doesn't shame me. But I say to him often, "Am I talking too much?" And he'll look at me. He say, "No, I that was interesting, but there's a but in there," and I think he's wanting to say, "But you could have said a little bit less." And so I'm paying attention. Well, you don't have to impress me. You do impress me. Would be reversed there. I'm trying to give him everything I can give him, and he doesn't need that. He doesn't want that.
Yeah.
I'm enough the way I am, and he's coming to me to talk about his situation in life. That's enough. That's what you can do.
In Men's Breakthrough, I one of the things I'll say in the workshop is, because people will say, well, how is it that you can talk to other people and stay curious about them?
Yes.
And not say what you need to say. And the answer is real simple. I say, well, I know what my thoughts are. And if they're not asking for them, then why am I giving it to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see that it's like that. You don't have to impress me. You do impress me.
Yes.
Number 6 is self-medication is an illusion. Learn to follow your physical symptoms. They will be your teacher.
Now that's a really important observation, everybody is listening to this, because what we want to do in this culture with symptoms, you have a headache, take an aspirin. You're anxious around company, take a what do they call it? Trans whatever. What do they call it?
What are we talking about?
If you're anxious, if you're at a party and you say to your therapist, "I'm anxious," they're going to prescribe
medicate you.
Yeah. So if you're a little boy and you can't sit still, they want to give you Ritalin. There's over 5 million little boys on Ritalin. It's a disaster. They're little boys. They need to run around. They need to squirm around. They're curious. They want to look for bugs. They want to look under things and over things. And we say, oh, that's hyperactive. Yeah. We find a doctor. He says, well, he's hyperactive. We'll give him Ritalin. No. So he learns to medicate himself. Maybe that later on turns into marijuana. Maybe it turns into some kind of harder drug, heroin or whatever. If you're an adult male in your 40s or 50s, probably turned into alcohol. And you say with great satisfaction, well, I just needed a couple pops when I got home. But a couple of pops is self-medication, and it doesn't do anything good for you. It does something quite potentially bad for you. So I want you who's listening to pay attention to how you self-medicate. I used to have a speech I did to PTA groups called "The Next Time You Have a Headache, Don't Take an Aspirin." And the idea of that was pay attention to what's giving you the headache, the tension, the stress, whatever that is, and deal with the tension and the stress rather than trying to make yourself a zombie. And that's what we do with booze or with, drugs, marijuana, whatever. We get very creative about self-medicating, but it's not solution oriented. It takes us in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's not solution oriented. It's a strategy, but I think it's most of the time it's somewhat unconscious or not thought out. So I'll share 2 things with you. I want to share one thing and then share another thing. So the first thing is I remember as a kid, and I was a musician. I'm still a musician. So I played the sax. And I remember the guys would drink, and I was young, and most of the bands I was in, the guys were always older than me. I was probably 17, 18 years old. The guys were, in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and even older than that sometimes. And they would just party, they would be, during the break, they'd pop, they'd pound down their beers and do all this. And as I got older, I had an opportunity to drink as I got older, and I just chose not to. And the reason why is I wanted to know what it was like. I just wanted the experience of what I was doing. Like I wanted the experience of playing music.
Yeah.
So then when it came to me in my older years, my wife said, I think you're depressed. I think you should get this medication. She told me that I was the one that came up with that, but I know it's not true because I'm not built that way. So I went and took the medication, and I didn't like it. And it wasn't that I didn't like the medication, is I didn't like the fact that I was relinquishing my having something to say about how I show up. It was it's an excuse. I can let myself go because of this. I can not regulate myself because the medicine's obviously not working. What? It's not me, and it was, and I felt that was going to be an excuse for me to not be who I really wanted to be, which was just my best, like the best version of me that I could be. And that's not the easy road to take, though, Dr. Frueh.
Right.
That's not the easy road. That's the hard road to take.
Right.
That's the hard road. But I think that for me, it was the only road. It was the only option for me.
Yes. So the alternative, you have another one, don't you? Is that it?
Yeah. And okay. So what I did was, is I did do drugs. I did do drugs. And what happened when I was younger, this is the because whole thing. When I was younger, I had a lot of energy and I still have a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy. I've always had a lot of energy, always but I was told about my energy and my energy was made wrong. And I noticed when I ate, it controlled my energy. So even to this day, I'm still part of this drug called food, you know, and
Yeah.
that I'm still learning. I'm still learning to this day at 59 years old that the distinguishing the difference between when I eat really good, I have all this energy, but there's somewhere inside of me, there's something that's inside of me that is off balance because of that energy. It doesn't seem right. Are you with me on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do.
Want to
I
say
do.
something about that? And I wanted to, and so like this is one of those therapy questions. So I want to, what's your take on that?
Well, that's a very good place because the second half of this uh, alternative is pay attention to your symptoms. They can be your teachers. Now, that's a different approach than self medication. Your symptoms, he's telling you about his symptom. He has an energy symptom, he has increased energy. Maybe it's feeling like it's going to flood him, overwhelm him. And so he's saying to himself, without realizing it, what do I need to do? I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want to be flooded with all this energy. I'm ADD. What's going on? And he has a hamburger and he has two hamburgers and he starts to come down. So if you're paying attention to
Exactly
the
right.
symptom, here's some alternatives. One is have a large glass of warm water. Two is do some deep breathing if you know how to do deep cleansing breathing.
I do. I do.
Three is to do some visualizations. We can have a whole podcast on that. We'll do some visualizations. And there are alternatives if you're listening to the symptom rather than diagnosing and medicating the symptom, you're listening to it. It will be your teacher. It will say, try this. It's not like a slam dunk. I went and I got this 1 day course. It's not like that. It's gee, every time, like a obese person says to me, I eat when I don't want to eat. I say, well, tell me more about when that is. Maybe we can break the code. Maybe we can unlock the storehouse of your imagination because what you're doing is pretty much knee jerk. You're saying, this happens, my knee pops up, I've gained an extra couple pounds. But if you
Yeah.
listen to the symptom, you say, what can I do with this symptom? So that's another whole podcast, but that's really important, what you're bringing
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
I'm excited about having that conversation. So we'll definitely do that. Yeah. So let's go number 7.
7,
You are spiritual.
spirituality.
Yeah. You are
Yeah.
spiritual. You were born so. The ancients teach you to husband it, attend to the soil, care for it, plant mindfully, harvest often. That is a whole podcast in itself right there.
It really is. It really is. See, because we don't know what spirituality is. That's my point of view. We know what religion is.
Yeah.
And religion has practices and disciplines, all kinds of symbols, all kinds of requirements. We have an in and an out in religion. You're in,
Mhm.
you're part of us. You're out, you're not part of us. All kinds of stuff in religion that have very little to do with spirituality. You ever meet someone, you say, whoa, boy, that was so good to talk. What'd you talk about? Oh, I really don't know. I just spent 5 minutes with her or him, and I felt somehow refreshed or uplifted or something.
Yeah.
It has to do with a person you'd want to watch the sunset with. If you're in a new relationship, as Martine is talking about, fairly new, you say, is this a person that I like to sit on the beach and watch the sun descend or the earth come up, whichever way you want to look at it? Is this a person I want to appreciate the resonance and the beauty of the sun and the ending of the day and the connection to the cosmos and the stars and the moon? Is this a person I want to share my deep spiritual resonance with? Because if it is, then I can feel my spirituality differently than I can alone. I can feel it alone, but I can even enrich and expand it with a partner that is open and curious and vulnerable to my spirituality. Then I start to define it. It's not about a specific theology or series of beliefs or certain values. It's Jesus said it this way. It's so beautiful. And I'm not talking religiously when I say Jesus. He's a teacher. And he said, if you want to know what the kingdom of heaven is about, study a child. Because the child hasn't lost their spirituality yet.
Yeah.
They're going, wow, look at Dad. Look at this. That's
It's a door
spirituality.
hinge.
Yeah, yes. And the
How does
adult
that
says,
big door move?
yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
And the adult blows it off. But if you allow the child to teach you, you're moving into the area of spiritual connectedness and cosmic awareness and deep emotional resonance. That is just the joy of being a human. So that too is a big conversation, like you said. But
oh my gosh, and it to me, it's flow. It's when you can be in that
flow,
state,
yes,
when you can be
yeah,
connected. Like as a musician, there's so many times where I would play, and then people would, go to the break, and then the other bandmates would say, "Oh my God, your solos were awesome. You were totally like, oh my God." And in those moments, I didn't remember my performance.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah, you were going with the flow.
I was in the flow. I was present to what I was just in the moment. Those were like cool. Those were cool times.
Sure. The head brain is not working. It's doing what it's supposed to do, but that's not in command. The heart brain's in command.
I love it. And so what I did when it came to raising my kids, and people would say, because I thought about that concept of like how when you're in flow, when you're in something that you love so much, that time's going to go by fast. And I had kids, and I was like, I did not want that time to go by fast. I've told many men this, and they've tried it.
Right.
I didn't want that time I wanted it to last. I wanted my experience with my boys to be lifetimes. And so what I did is as I spent time, talking to spirit, talking to God, and saying, can you please make this awesome, but make it be like lifetimes. And in those 18 years that I spent, 21 years I spent with them, it was really truly like lifetimes. It didn't go by fast. I didn't have that experience, and so for me, when you talk about, the spiritual thing, for me, it's about something that you can command, something that you have something to say about.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time, but we got 3 left, and these 3 go pretty quick.
Yeah, let's knock them out. We've been on for 43 minutes, and I think this is worth our time. So let's yeah.
Okay.
So number ocho is pretentiousness.
Yes.
M. Scott Peck says, in people of the lie is evil. Pretentiousness is evil. That's what M. Scott Peck says in the book, The People of the Lie.
He's the guy that wrote The Road Less Traveled.
I have it right
Scott
here.
Peck. That's him. Yeah. Okay. And he calls pretentiousness. I was surprised when I read that. I like that book, by the way. Those of you who like to read, that's a good book to read. Pretentiousness. Why is that? Why does he go to that? Why does he say it's evil? Well, because if you're being somebody you're not, how can the world work? If you're being somebody you're not with your 2 boys, the world doesn't work. They don't know who their father is. If we are being somebody we're not, and we're just wanting to market this podcast to make a bunch of money on it, then this podcast is useless. Might as well throw it away. Because
you can make money on podcasts?
Well, no, but the only thing that's of value to the listener is whether we're authentic, whether we're genuine with each other, whether we can risk being real, those kind of things. If you can risk being real, and I can risk being real, if I can be authentically present, then the possibility of someone listening to the podcast goes way up in terms of they're getting some food for themselves, for their own work. If I'm just spouting a bunch of other people's theories and trying to impress or convince you, I'm trying to impress you, then it's a waste of your time. So I just wanted people to get the idea that their own pretentiousness, because we all have a little, some of us have a lot, their own pretentiousness doesn't serve any God that I know of. It serves the devil. And
Mm,
pay attention to that. And then that's
that's good.
followed. Yeah, that follows. You want to comment on pretentiousness?
Denial. Yeah, I do because I do have pretentiousness in me. I do
Yeah.
have. I do. I'll tell you this what happened. So my mother lives in Mexico, and one time I was down. I went to go visit her, and I'm down, and my mother is kind of like she knows all the people, all the neighbors, and they get together and they go out and have drinks, go out and have dinner. And she wanted to introduce me to all her neighbors, and it's this really cool gated community. It's right on the water. It's this beautiful place that she lives in. And so I went to dinner, and one of the guys was asking me about myself, and everybody like turns to me and starts listening. And I start telling this story about my life. And I would say probably about 4 or 5 minutes into the story, I realized that I don't know if this is the truth. I don't know. And I've told this story about myself so many times. I don't know if it's a true story anymore. But I was too far in. Too far in, Dr. Frueh. I'm going to keep going with this because I know how to tell the story.
Yeah.
So we're walking home, and it's this really cool little thing with cobblestones and this little area, right? So we're walking home, and I'm talking to my mother, and I said, Mom, thank you for inviting me and all this and that. And I said, that story that I said? And she goes, yeah, I've heard the story before. I go, I think it might be a lie. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I go, I don't know if all of that happened. And
Yes.
she goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of like, and I was offended how easy, not by my mom, but by people, like how easy and how much room we have to be inauthentic, how much room that we give each other as people to be full of shit, and to be
Yeah.
pretentious, to lie. And then,
Yeah.
and where is our commitment to our word? Where's my commitment
Yeah.
to not having a good story? I don't have anything to add here. I don't have a
Yeah.
good story. I don't have a good story
Yeah.
for you.
Right.
I can't connect. Whatever. But it's not how I put myself together as a kid. I put myself together as always make sure that you have something that you can contribute, something you can add. And
Yes.
and and what I was adding for years in my life, I was adding bullshit. I was adding
Yeah.
lies. I would make up the
Yeah.
lie on the moment, and then
Yeah.
I would like, that's a good lie. I'm going to use that one again. I'm going to,
Yeah.
and so I don't know where the truth ended and the lie began.
You have to have a good memory to be pretentious.
Sure do.
My daughter, who's the college professor, she's very hard on me. She's lovely. And she said to me one time, she was angry with me. This is maybe 20 years ago. She said, Dad, I didn't call to get a therapist. I called you to get a father.
Mm.
And what she meant was I was going into my own pretentiousness. I was trying to give her answers or massage what she was saying. She didn't want any of that because she knows me and loves me. She saw right through it.
Mm.
She wanted me just to relax and be her dad. I didn't
So
know
here's
what
the
to say.
question.
Yeah.
Here's the question on that one. In that moment, what did you give up in that moment to shift? Because that's what I think men need to understand and learn how to do.
My fear of being okay as a father.
Mm.
I have a great fear that I'm not enough, that I didn't do it right, that my mistakes are bigger than my gifts. I have to face those fears because my children, all of whom are adults, I have 9 children. All my children are adults now, and my children say, we don't need your fear. We need your presence.
Wow,
They
that's
don't
beautiful.
say it in my language, they say it in their language. What's the presence mean? It means I can actually do what you and I are doing right now. We can talk with authenticity. We don't compete with each other. We don't try to impress each other. We don't. And
Mm.
so whatever flows, flows. It's the same thing there with my grown children. They say, knock it off, Dad. I
It's
like that.
number 5. It's the mirror of number 5 where you say
Yeah.
number 5 is you don't have to impress me, you do impress me. it's like I don't have to impress you, and just leave
Yeah.
it at that.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Right.
it's just it's this part of us that it's so natural to do that.
Yeah.
It's such a natural thing. So that was cool. And I remember waking up the next morning and just going, yeah, I got to change the way that I relate to my own word, like who I
Exactly.
am, like who,
Exactly.
and like
Yes.
who am I? Like what I not only I've now believed some of the stuff that I was saying, and I had to like I remember like going that morning and sitting back and I'm going, like, what really happened and what didn't happen, and was I committed to actually even in figuring that out? And I did. I took time. I took that story apart, not all of it, but I took some of it apart, and I took enough of it apart to understand that a lot of it was BS.
Yeah.
And it was a powerful lesson. It was one of those moments that you're humiliated in your own self.
Yes.
You ever have those?
Yes. I've had tons of them.
Hey, there's nobody around, but like, oh, geez, I'm kind of embarrassed. There's nobody to be
Yeah.
embarrassed except for you. It's like, and that was one of
My
those. That was one of
my
those.
my leadership coach used to say, what she'd say to herself is, who would I have to be to have just said that?
Mm,
And I go,
ouch.
whoa, that's a powerful
Whoa.
question. We're up to number 9.
Now
Um,
are we at, oh yeah, number 9. Denial is a psychological cul-de-sac. Denial is a psychological
that's
cul-de-sac.
self-defining, right? Bill Clinton
Mhm.
once said, denial is more than a river in Egypt. And he was right, because, denial untracks men more than most any other thing you can think of, because they want to argue and protect themselves and defend themselves and explain themselves. That's what they've learned in early childhood development. And to give that up with your partner or with another man is just saying, I don't understand what you just said. Just that.
Oh
No,
my God, that's so funny. So I'm going to say this not as a one up,
yeah,
I can't tell how many times I've been in conversations with people, and that thing that you just said, I've said, like, I don't, can you tell me, can you say that to me like a fifth grader?
yeah,
And that has been such a freeing thing to do.
sure.
And one of the things I teach that in Men's Breakthrough, um, and why I teach that is because there's so often that we're in conversations with people and they say something and we don't understand what they're saying, but yet
Yeah,
we'll allow the conversation to continue,
yes,
you know.
right,
And so
right,
my take on that denial that you're talking about is that now we're living in a conversation is now an illusion, because my brain has an open loop that's trying to close and like, what's the word? So now I'm like, 13 seconds behind, and I'm trying to remember what the person's saying in the moment, but my brain's also trying to figure that out. So at one point, I know it's immediate. I'm not even present to what's going on. I'm
right,
in my own thing,
right, right.
and it's because of that. It's because of that um, inability to realize that I put myself in a psychological cul-de-sac, that I'm denying the truth, which is I don't know what you just said. It like, to me, it doesn't make sense, and which goes to number one, which is vulnerability is a gift. To be vulnerable is to
Yeah,
say that I don't
right,
understand.
right.
So
Or as
cool.
a man that I saw a couple of years ago told the men's group, he said, my wife and I have been making love for 27 years every Tuesday night, and we know how to make love, and I know how to make her come. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. But he said, last week I discovered that I had no idea how to make love to her. And I showed up on Tuesday night in the bedroom and I said, I have no idea how to make love to you. And she looked at me and we both had tears coming down our face, because she loves me and I love her. And she said, you know what? I don't have any idea how to make love to you either. He said, we had the most beautiful lovemaking that evening without intercourse. We had the most beautiful lovemaking because all we were doing was educating each other
Mhm.
and talking to each other. Truly an intimate evening. So don't be afraid to give your denial up and move into the present moment. And that is the cure for senility. Number 10. The cure is to live in the present moment. The cure is to give up pretentiousness and denial. The cure is to stop trying to impress. The cure is to be real with your children. Those are the cures for senility. The alternative is terrible. You become less and less of who you are, and pretty soon you're in your 70s and you're sitting in a restaurant with your partner and you're looking out the window and neither one of you have anything to talk about. That's a terrible, terrible alternative.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I want to jump in on the conversation. Of course, not today, but let's do that. I would like to do that in the next one where we're going to talk about sex talk, because that's like, man, I probably going to embarrass myself in the conversation, but I'm okay with that. I would love to do that because I think that's a powerful conversation where we can be real. Or I'm willing to be real about that. And
you're going to lead. Okay, you lead, I'll follow.
That conversation, my man.
Yep, you lead, I'll follow. 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll do that one. In the meantime, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to Men's Breakthrough Hangout. And if today's discussion inspires you at all, and you're seeking guidance and you'd like to connect, please connect with Dr. Stephen Frueh or myself. I have the links in the bio. We love that opportunity. So reach out to me. I'm a men's coach. I focus on men going through divorce, going through separation, and even people that are in marriages that are just having a tough time reconnecting. And Dr. Frueh is just like, he's the guy I talk to. So, if he's not available, call me. But I'm pretty good at what I do too. So so do that. And if you're looking for an in-depth conversation and expert advice, please reach out to Dr. Frueh and help you explore some of the insights, some of the stuff that you're working on. Don't hesitate to take a positive step in the direction of your life. Your life is worth it. If there is one asset that is important in life, it's you. So believe that. Anything you want to say, Dr. Frueh?
I say thank you so much.
Awesome. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.